we can in the time we've got left. We've got a question for you, Soumya, on from Gillian Ashmore, are there any new ideas emerging around how to reach those who are not identifiable within current formal systems? And she said that can be for all speakers, but it came through during yours as well. So if you've got any thoughts on that, or if anyone else wants to come in on that.
I'll take one stab at it. We haven't had new ways of sort of identifying them, because identifying who's kind of what we say left behind. In fact, for those who are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, there are 17 goals, but one underlying theme across all 17 is this whole notion of leave no one behind commitment that all countries have signed up to. And that's kind of the sort of underbelly of across all the 17 goals and different targets. So there have been sort of ongoing efforts since the start of 2016, when the SDGs took over or started, to look at these disaggregated pockets. Now, we have a fairly good understanding of what typically constitutes and who typically are these marginalized communities: the elderly, women, children, and people living in rural areas with low education, with therefore also low income and wealth, those employed in agrarian activities, or have sort of part-time, non-formal jobs. So it also includes ethnic minorities or religious minorities. So we kind of have a fairly robust idea across countries, consistent with across countries, of who they are. What we do not have a robust idea right now is what impact has COVID had on each individual sort of criteria, but also, as other presenters have said before this, the compounding effect of multiple strands or multiple themes. So that would definitely take some time. We have the tools, we have the techniques, household surveys, we moved from face-to-face surveys into phone-based surveys. We need to actually undertake them to carry it out. I will mention that it has become a slightly political too. The whole notion of gathering data, while we do need it for active policymaking, we've also seen evidence where countries have been hesitant to let data come out because for the fear that it might reflect poorly on the health interventions that they're doing. In some cases, health officials or health ministries have said, we'll allow you to do the economic analysis of how COVID has impacted on businesses and households, but please do not ask questions on health service delivery. In the case of US, recently, the Trump administration has said that all data on COVID has to now get routed through the White House rather than the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, which was the latter being much more sort of independent and verifiable, whereas when it comes through a political arm of the government, it has the potential for getting manipulated. So we do know how to get it. We need to renew focus and funding for systems which can actually do that. And we also need some time, but time is something that's kind of running out.
Great, thank you. Did any of the other panelists want to come in on Gillian's question? I can repeat it if you want. Oh, Andrea, you've got your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I think as an analyst, the question of data and also how do you reach or get the information you need in order to answer what you need to know is very important, especially when you look at, what we mentioned before, those differences between Black and ethnic minority groups in the UK, especially in worldwide, of course. At JRF, we've been doing a lot more focus on lived experiences work and the qualitative studies you can use to kind of get those stories out to these different areas that the data cannot give you that granular level to understand how to describe them, whereas they can describe their own situation and the policies needed to alleviate the situation very, very well themselves. And they don't need that level of evidence to do it as well. So I think the discussion of how to include lived experiences work and polling is now a new, has really come up, especially during COVID-19, because our normal surveys, for example, what I use, is not updated quickly enough to understand what poverty looks like in the UK. The poverty figures I have to quote come from last year, even the year before, because of how these annual surveys come out. So I think going forward, when talking about how to reach these communities that people might call left behind, I think really, in a way, we really need community-led organizations to also help drive the lived experiences work that we're able to use to then translate to policies and work on a national level. So.
Great, thank you. Gera, do you want to come in quickly?
Yes, on that point, I agree that community-led actors are the ones that can do a lot of work in that sense. I think there's, so from my personal perspective of going and doing fieldwork with communities, there is definitely a segment of communities that are, because of many reasons and because of many we can say vulnerability, but it's really, you know, the informal type of situation. It just gives you, you know, so in some cases it's really hard to get some data just because people don't feel safe. So I feel like it's just about creating a situation, first of all, getting to the roots of the problem. So it's about economic exclusion, mostly, that's the problem. So creating a situation where informal work in general is just not the better alternative because there is something better to start with. And then just the idea of, yeah, I agree. There is definitely a role for community-led. And there is just a role from, you know, just creating a space where people feel safe to say that these are the issues that I'm facing, because that's one of the main concerns. Around also other pieces of work that are not related to COVID, such as housing. We had a lot of communities just coming forward and saying, I just don't feel safe, giving you this data. And that is 100% respect, you know, we need to respect that. So that we need to create a safe space for that to just be shared in, you know, that's what that's the key thing, I think.
Great, thank you, and thank you to all the presenters. I'm afraid we are pretty much out of time. Just one last thing, I know Saffron, you wanted to share a flyer related to some of your work before we close.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a perfect segue because I think absolutely, you know, speaking to stakeholders and develop, you know, getting evidence from the people that are actually being affected by these issues is exactly what we need in order to address this. Sorry, this is taking a little longer to come up than I hoped. But basically, this is the flyer for our survey. So it's a mixed method study that Kira mentioned and also Lauren mentioned at the beginning. So, so do participate. It's a mixed method study. There are cash prizes. So we're running a survey. We've also got interviews and focus groups, and it's basically speaking to people with different minority ethnicities based in the Southwest, so that we can sort of supplement some of the other evidence that we have at a national level to understand what's going on and to develop better approaches to supporting them. So if you'd like further information on that, either email Rosie or speak to me, and we'd be really pleased to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Yeah, as you said, I think that's a really good, kind of fits in very well with what we were talking about, and it kind of wraps up our discussion really nicely. So I'm just going to share a final slide just with some contact information as closing remarks here. So it's just 2 seconds just to load up. So as I said, we're pretty much out of time, but I just want to say thank you again to all of our speakers. Such varied presentations, but also real opportunities for synergy and potential collaboration there, I think, because a lot of similar themes were coming through, shared concerns, shared reflections. So hopefully there'll be space for taking these discussions forward. I know my colleague Tigis Grieve has just put very similar comments on the chat window, that hopefully this will be the start of discussions and opportunities to work together on this really important topic. So thank you also to all of the other attendees for your well, sticking around, for your helpful questions, and for engaging with this webinar, because it's something we were really keen on doing, and making sure that we're addressing these issues. Obviously, it's a big media topic at the moment, and there's various high-level discussions going on, but also there is that UKRI supported opportunities, so there's definitely space for us to capitalise on the fact that there is investment in this question, so we can hopefully find out together what the challenges and issues are and how we can address them and work to improve the situation and mitigate the negative impacts. So clearly COVID-19 in general is having wide-ranging, complex and devastating impacts on communities across the world, and those in poverty will be disproportionately affected, and that exacerbates existing socioeconomic and ethnic inequalities. So hopefully by coming together and learning about these different perspectives, approaches and challenges, we can be better situated to individually and collectively make that positive impact. So please do keep in touch. Hopefully you can see our contact details on the screen. So drop us an email or engage with us on Twitter, or otherwise get in touch via the websites. Hope you found the webinar interesting and informative. Please do let us know any feedback, and do get in touch if you're interested in partnering with us and our research community at the University of Bristol, either on research related to today's topic or on potentially running a collaborative webinar together, exploring related or separate topics. We'd be very open to having those discussions with you. So thank you and have a good afternoon.